This is going to be a little more on those best sellers. This is something of a spur-of-the-moment deal that's going on right now. I just finished recording one of these videos. We have a stack of scripts, so it was from some time ago, about a list of best-selling novels and some factors that they might have in common. When I was done reading, my cameraman/director said about the list, that started out with women, and then the men took over. I hadn't given that a thought, the presence of gender on the list, and suddenly it was clear to me that the most interesting thing about the list was just exactly that. First women, then exclusively men. And I'd completely overlooked it. This is an attempt to give some thought to what she'd said. She was absolutely right, of course. The list was in chronological order. The first 4 books on the list were written by women, and the last 8 were all written by men. What the hell had happened? I don't know how to calculate the right number, but I'm quite sure that the statistical probability of the list breaking so neatly into 2 like that has to be in the millions. It was like having lightning strike. It never should have happened, but there it was. It did. 2 of the ladies' books, Peyton Place and To Kill a Mockingbird, have small frames or settings, but that does not restrict their themes. Valley of the Dolls is more glamorous and is about, I think, the deadliness at the heart of that bright facade. Gone with the Wind has the largest canvas, tracking the end of a way of life crushed and burned by the Civil War. All 4 of the books have female protagonists, and they may have been directed, at least in part, toward a largely feminine readership. That does not mean that a man could not read and enjoy them, just as a man could read Jane Austen or Little Women. I only mean to say that women might be more immediately receptive to those books. And if that's true, then there was a substantial number of female readers in that decade from 1956 to 1966. Maybe stay-at-home wives. Then, as my cameraman noted, the men took over. I would say that more so than the women's novels, these books are plot-driven and they feature male characters. This is true for The Godfather, obviously, and even The Exorcist, because the priests actively battling the demon are all males. In Jaws, the forces aligned against the attacker, the serial killer, the shark, are again all male. The Dead Zone, The Hunt for Red October, The Firm, and The Da Vinci Code are mostly male, with women absent altogether or popping up in supportive roles. The exception to this is The Bridges of Madison County. Like the ladies' books, it has a small frame and a female protagonist, but also a roguish Rhett Butler-like hero in The Photographer who turns her placid world upside down. This is love dropping down like a tornado, stirring things up, then moving on. The other 7 masculine books have all got large settings, and they tend to be filled with much more danger and death than love. They vary, of course, but in one way or another, I think you could classify them all as thrillers, fast-paced page-turners. As to why the change would have come so abruptly and completely after 1966, I think I'm going to say, as a guess, that it might have been the influence of cinema. The books written by the men fairly cry out for the big screen treatment, and I suspect that at least some of them were written, scene by gripping scene, in a very cinematic fashion. All 8 of the men's books were made into movies, but all four of the women's were too. The difference, to me, is that the ladies' books read like novels, while the men's have that precisely calculated, headlong drive you can find in a movie, accentuated by a pounding soundtrack. I may not have answered the question, but I do find it a very interesting anomaly, and I want to compliment my cameraman/director for bringing it up. It's quite something. 4 bestsellers, all by women, followed by 8 blockbusters, all by men.